Okay, everybody, welcome to the Hard Sell with me, your host, Joel Stevenson. On the Hard Sell, we're trying to cover all aspects of sales because sales is hard, and we're trying to bring to you the leading voices in sales to help you make more sense of any sales activity that you're involved in and hopefully achieve better results. And today on the program, we've got a great guest. John Judge is Senior Vice President of Sales at Crayon. And prior to Crayon, John has held quite a number of sales leadership roles, including SVP of Sales at WordStream, also CRO at DataWatch, SVP for Enterprise Sales at Iron Mountain, and also a role in sales leadership at Novell in their Linux business. So, John, welcome to the Hard Sell.
Happy to be here, Joel.
Great. Well, maybe as we get started here, tell us a little bit about Crayon and what you all do over there, because you guys are up to some really interesting things, and I want to talk a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing over there today.
Sure. Hello, everybody. So I work for a company called Crayon, and we are in, ironically enough, the competitive intelligence business. Crayon is a SaaS platform that helps organizations understand what's going on outside their four walls. So we go out and get all kinds of great information out on the web and also from your internal organization as well that I'll talk a little bit about. And we help you figure out signal to noise. And then most importantly, once we've grabbed that signal, we have the technology that's able to deliver all of this great competitive intelligence into what I like to say every watering hole your organization needs, whether it be a Slack channel, a Teams channel, email, putting it in your CRM, wherever your sales and customer success people live, we can put the competitive intelligence right in front of them so that they know how to stay up in the balls of their feet and win more competitive deals and gain more market share. It's a pretty cool platform.
Yeah, it's neat. And another great Boston-based tech company that's got a lot of momentum. So that's exciting. Well, maybe let's start, diving in a little bit to sort of how reps should deal with competition in a deal. And I'm curious about this not only from sort of the individual contributor perspective, but then also like what does the organization need to do to make the rep successful. So I'm curious, like since you all are like in this business, what do you think are the maybe the top mistakes that a rep makes in dealing with competitive intelligence? Or I don't know if it's like sins of omission or sins of commission that we should be talking about, but maybe just give us a little bit of color for what you see as maybe best practices or worst practices from a rep perspective.
Sure, happy to. So I think one of the biggest mistakes reps can make, especially those who are selling in the mid-market and enterprise levels, is not asking your prospective buyers who else they're considering, or are they considering anyone else? Because the buying journey always has alternatives under consideration. So to think that you're in a deal and, hey, you're in control because you created it through some outbound effort on your own is very unlikely, especially if you're calling in a larger organization. They have to have some kind of a comparison. So ask. And you don't need to necessarily know who the actual competitors are. You want to know how many there are. And we'll talk a little bit about how to deal with competitors in a second. So ask. The other thing, too, is know the jargon of your competitors. So your prospective buyer or buyers, may not say anyone by name, but they may have told you, yeah, we're considering 3 other organizations. But know the jargon of your competition because, they're out there trying to get into your buyer's head as much as you are. And if you start to hear the jargon of a particular competitor, you want to be up on your toes on that one. You want to be ready to start to position your solution or your product in a favorable way in comparison to that competitor. The last thing that I would point out is relish competition. Don't be afraid of it. Competition means your buyers, that next step closer to actually making a decision. They're going through the trouble to talk to a bunch of different organizations or two or three or what have you. Relish the opportunity. Don't be afraid of competition, because it's going to give you the opportunity to really talk about the why of your solution being the best one to solve their problems.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you certainly do see reps that feel like they're like it's not their place to ask, that whether it's a competitive deal or how they're thinking about the buying process or what else they're considering, and potentially leaving important information on the table. But what about is there another extreme of that where a rep can be so obsessed with the competition that they actually might not do as good of a job selling their own company as they could?
Yeah. Oh no, you've got to be really careful around that, especially like we do this and they don't do that, or they don't do this and you should really look at how we do this. Or did you know that they don't, that they lie about that or what have you? That is a slippery slope to go down, in my opinion. And many of us out there may actually have a competitor that behaves in that way sometimes. And, don't let them draw you in. Don't let them draw you in. I always like to, strike a bargain, or ask my reps to strike a bargain with prospective customers who start that slippery slope and go, "Hey, I'll tell you what, can we make a deal here? Anything that you need to know about Crayon, how about you let us be the ones to answer that question for you? And we'll let you go figure out what the competitor can do or can't do." How does that sound? How about we strike that balance? And that way Crayon can spend, the extra 40, 50% of time that we'd, be messing around trying to help you understand what competitors are doing. We can take that time to actually talk about your business problems and talk about how we're going to solve them, versus doing the, they got this and we got that, and this just sort of feature bashing.
Yeah, I think I might steal that. I really like that. I really like that framing, and I imagine it ends up being this way for a lot of tech companies. Like you're sort of held to a higher standard in the areas in which you're selling, and so I imagine your reps are very much under a microscope for how they handle these conversations.
Well, yeah, they certainly are. And um, when you're in the competitive intelligence business and you're in a competitive deal, you're kind of like double amped up. So we we have to be very particular with our sales folks to, like, hey, let's stay on message. Let's stay on what we can do, but most importantly, let's stay focused on what are the business problems that your prospect is trying to solve, and how do we help them go solve it. And the only time we kind of lean in on any kind of anti-competitive message is we really love the phrase, "only with Crayon can you fill in the sentence."
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I want to switch to the sort of the corporate side of this in a moment. But before we get to that, it strikes me that reps, in addition to sort of dealing with competition in a deal, are often the source of important competitive intelligence that then has to get brought back to the company in some way.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit to like how you see a rep's role in that process, and how they should be sort of participating in helping the company understand how they're competing or how they could be competing differently.
That's a great question, Joel, and it is of incredible importance that the reps are not only actively engaged in pulling in competitive intelligence, but the organization being very receptive to this information coming in. We call it field intelligence. And at Crayon, it is as critical an element of competitive intelligence as tracking your competitor's website or tracking their pricing or feature changes or what have you. The key thing to field intelligence or rep intelligence is, hey, I've been running sales organizations a long, long time. And I remember when I was an individual contributor, sometimes that stuff I got in the field was absolute gold and absolute truth. Sometimes it was not. So you want to drive that competitive culture inside your organization where, hey, bring this stuff in. You got a copy of a competitor's proposal, or a customer told you that, a competitor had a certain feature that you didn't think they had. Bring that in. The organization needs to be receptive to that, but the organization also needs to have the ability to curate that, meaning validate that the information is real, validate that the information is important to the broader organization, and then find a way to get that information out to the broader organization. Because the typical workflow of, hey, I got a copy of a competitor's proposal is I send it to my sales manager. My sales manager maybe shares it with a couple people, maybe talks to somebody over in product, but it doesn't get out to the broader organization. So it's get it, be very receptive to bring that stuff in, but you need some sort of curation capability inside your organization to say, hey, wait a minute, this one's not good. This is gold. How do we get this into the hands of our customer success and field salespeople as quickly as we can?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I imagine now too, with the advent of a lot of things being digital and recorded and that sort of thing, you've got, there's this conversation that sometimes happens inside of our company where somebody will make a claim about something. I'm like, well, can you send me the recording? I want to hear it.
Yeah.
Or our product team wants to hear it, or something like that. So I imagine now you've got sort of at least the ability to capture some of this information in more of a rich way than maybe when you and I started selling.
Yeah, you're darn right. I mean, conversational intelligence is turned into, deal intelligence and all the other different names that many companies provide now to their customers. It is a powerful validation tool that if a rep, instead of typing it into a CRM or typing it into a note, can say, hey, go to this place in this call I just had with this prospect and listen to the prospect say it, carries a lot more weight, certainly in our organization, carries a lot more weight to our product teams, our marketing teams, and other sales leaders. Like, whoa, that's insightful.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely, yeah, I found it carries a certain weight when, you hear a customer explain it in their own words versus it sort of getting filtered through. I think it's definitely an area for companies to be able to react a little bit faster, maybe, in some ways, bridge a gap between what the sales team is trying to communicate to the product team and maybe, just being able to communicate that a little bit more crisply because they don't need to do it in their own words.
Exactly. And once you get good at it, there's a lot less typing as well.
Right. Yeah. Right. Which is great. Yeah. We're big anti-typing people over here. So maybe it's switching gears now to the company side. So, we talked a little bit about, what a rep needs to do in competitive situations, which is, pretty much all situations these days, at least in SaaS. And so maybe talk a little bit about what does the company need to do to help a rep compete, effectively in deals that are not somebody shows up and says, hey, I want to buy your thing.
Right. Listen, one is organizations, if you don't already have it, you need to have a competitive culture that runs through the full business. Dealing with competition is not the sole purpose or the sole responsibility of your field sales organization. Your customer success organization is dealing with it. People are trying to churn out your existing customers. Your product marketing people have got to differentiate themselves. Your product people have got to build better product. So you need to have that competitive culture, and that then enables the organization's ability to, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm not trying to make a Crayon pitch here, but put that kind of necessary competitive intelligence into the hands of your field sales organization and customer success organization so that they're empowered to know, all right, we're a little weak in a couple of these places here. Let's see if we can steer the ship away from that conversation. But we're very strong in these other places. And again, always with the messaging at, hey, don't get feature fighting here. make sure that this feature or this particular capability that your organization has is best solving that customer's problem. Don't get into, the he said, she said battle. Like you want to have your prospect saying, okay, tell me why your particular solution is better. Fantastic. The door is now open for you to tell that story. And hopefully you've been enabled by your organization with maybe sales battle cards or other kinds of popular things that folks use, that, hey, this is the story you want to tell, and tell it in this manner, because this is what helps us win more deals.
Right. And if a company is sort of maybe earlier on this journey towards, having sort of a competitive culture, if you will, and they're trying to start to put some of these pieces in place, like, is there a role that is normally the one that champions this and like starts to get the company organized? Is that like typically a product marketing manager or someone who normally champions this?
Joel, it's a great question. So we see it sort of start in one or two places in the organization typically, and then in the end, it eventually lands. The ownership of it lands somewhere inside the marketing organization. But early on, it may be a sales enablement function. So you've got your onboarding, sales training, keep people updated with the product. Hey, and here's I'm going to lean in on some competitive support here as well. Or very often it's inside the product marketing organization, where it comes down and says, hey, you got to be able to tell people about what our product does, but you also need to know how it stands out vis-a-vis these 2, 3, 4 competitors. That's where it starts. And then it blossoms out into, wow, there's a lot more work we need to put into this thing, because the owners of competitive intelligence at the organization level serve every master. That they are eventually serving the executive team. So more strategic decisions are made with the competition in mind. The product team, the marketing team, the customer success team, the sales team, it blossoms out in a hurry. But to answer your question directly, it typically starts at the sales enablement level or in the product marketing organization.
Right. That makes sense. And so that maybe that might be, sort of an earlier stage. I wonder, maybe as people then advance a little bit further along in their journey, and I'm assuming this is going to be true for other industries as well, but I did see, at least for SaaS, Profitwell, who's another Boston-based company, did a study that showed, I think it was something along the lines of, in 2013, the average software company had 5 competitors, and now the average software company has like 15 or 20 competitors, some insane number like that. And so I wonder, in a world of increasing competition, which probably makes sense because the barriers to entry in a lot of industries are getting lowered, due to everything as a service. Yeah. How do you decide whether you really just need to focus on a handful of competitors, or you need to focus on all the competitors? Like where do you, is there a way to try to parse that apart?
Yeah, Joel, again, spot on question. I mean, you can get real paranoid in the competitive intelligence mindset real fast, and suddenly think that outside ancillary companies are about to catch up on you or buy somebody or what have you. We like to think about it, and I like to think about it as, what's the digestion level of your organization to deal with what you're going to share with them. So you could sit there and go, oh my gosh, we have legitimately 20 competitors. But you can typically figure out, all right, we got 20, but who are the 5 we really got to care most about? And lean in there, especially organizations that are just, trying to build this competitive culture. Like, lean in on some key ones that are going to help you in your key markets and help you on most of your deals. Sure, you want to keep an eye on some of the others and some of the up-and-comers, and those up-and-comers may unfortunately be one of the key ones you need to track. But you've got to look down and go, okay, if I've got a sales organization of 20, 30, 50, 100 people, like how many competitors can I really ask them to be on their toes about? Now, more mature organizations, you certainly can ask them to be on the ball for 10 or 15 specific competitors. The second thing, though, is larger organizations begin to segment their sales teams. So then that offers it the opportunity to segment your competitive intelligence a little bit here. Hey, you know what? In the North America team, it's really these 6 competitors, and over here on our EMEA team, it's 2 of those, but a couple of other new ones. So you can kind of like not just throw up all of your competitive intelligence on the full organization. You can segment it somewhat to those who really need it, so they can digest it, understand it, and like we talked about earlier, engage in it and be make it a two-way street of communication.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's certainly it's every organization that I've been a part of that's been a debate about who to focus on and how wide to go. That sort of gives some frameworks. Well,
Yeah.
we could probably spend hours discussing this subject, but I want to just take a pause here and see if the audience has any questions. I think there might have been one, but while we're waiting for that, do you want to maybe just let people know if they want to learn more about Crayon or they want to be in touch? What are the best ways to do that?
Sure. Thank you. So we are at crayon.co, crayon.co, not .com, or you'll get taken to a funky place in the Nordics. Crayon.co. I'm easily reached at jj@crayon.co. But come to our website. It is rich in all kinds of great information. I would, if you're kind of like, hey man, don't stick a salesperson on me just yet here, JJ. We're cool with that. I would ask you to look at a couple things on our website. One is we have a competitive intelligence academy, which is a way for you to kind of learn best practices through some coaching that both our employees give and customers give. Sign up for our blog, loaded with all kinds of great information that just kind of come in your inbox every once in a while. Or if you are interested in seeing what the product does and getting a sense, you ping me and I will do my best to get you connected with someone very bright and intelligent on my team.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. And I'm looking at. I don't see. I thought we had one question. It just looks like that has been withdrawn. So I'll close with one more question for you, which is more of a philosophical one, which has to do with there's a school of thought that says actually ignore your competition. Like if you're in a big enough market, the competition doesn't matter. Just focus on what you do and your customers. How do you respond to that kind of way of thinking?
Listen, it absolutely has a lot of merit, Joel. I believe you should know how many competitors are in your deal. We at Crayon, we don't like to say our competitor's name. One of our competitors likes to say our name a lot. We don't like to say their name. I also feel that if you stay away from the name of the competitor and focus in more on, hey, how many people are still involved in your decision process? Oh, you had 4, now it's down to 2. Are we one of them? Fantastic. Listen, put yourself in the shoes of your buyer. Buying a SaaS product is a really hard thing to go do. Somebody's going to stick their neck out at the organization you're talking to, and they're going to make a hard decision. They're going to make what they're perceiving as to be a risky decision. The more you can put yourself in the position of a trusted problem solver, and yes, you're problem solving somewhat vis-a-vis the competition, but the more you're in that, like, okay, let me show you why the particular problems you have are best solved with our product and no other product available on the marketplace, you're helping that buyer on a tough journey versus getting into that cat and mouse game. You should know how many are in there. You should know where you stand. You should ask where you stand. But stay away from saying anybody's name. Just say your own.
Yep. Great advice, and a really interesting discussion today, John. I really appreciate, JJ, really appreciate your time, and hope to stay in touch.
Absolutely, Joel. Absolutely enjoyed it.
All right, take care.
All right, cheers.
Bye.